Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Silent Hill. In the last part we reached Midwich Elementary and now we're going full out exploring it. Now the further you get into Midwich, more of the Grey Children do spawn. And it's in particular whenever you're on any of the floors, horizontal hallways in the map, like the two sides of the courtyard for instance, where it's really hard to get around some of them because they'll place like 3 of them in those halls. And I find it's just really hard to get through that without getting hit. Again, technically you're not supposed to play the game like this, I just am. Oh, also, I forgot to mention this move entirely. Whenever you knock an enemy down on the ground flat like that, and you're still hearing the radio, they're not dead. Unlike Silent Hill, unlike Resident Evil rather, enemies don't like bleed out when they're dead to show you they're dead. Only the radio goes off. But you want to get close to basically any enemy you knock down because you can kick them. And that, it's not an instant kill, but it does the most damage that you can do in the game, I think, in a single strike. It's a good way to finish off a lot of enemies. Oh, what about this is rattling? Just a cat. Thankfully, we never get to see what just happened to that cat, because I would be very sad. I love cats. I found my cat during this channel's reign, and I brought it up. I think it was in like the finale of Battle Network 3 back when? Ah, Zelda, you are 9 years old this year. Huh. Also, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm taking a bit of a gamble when it comes to playing this, because I'm going to bet that somehow this is getting released close-ish to October, enough that I can say, Happy Halloween. I say close-ish because it's currently the end of April, but oh well. A tale of birds without a voice. First flew the greedy pelican, eager for the reward, white wings flailing. Then came a silent dove, flying above the pelican, as far as he could. A raven flies in, flying higher than the dove, just to show that he can. A swan glides in to find a peaceful spot, next to another bird. Finally comes out a crow, coming quickly to a stop, yawning and then napping. Who will show the way? Who will be the key? Who will lead to the silver reward? That is your hint for the puzzle in this room in order to get the silver medallion. There's some blood on some of the keys. But does this mean anything? Yes, it does. As you play each of these keys, you'll notice 5 in particular, like that one and that one, don't make sound. There were 5 birds just listed, so you need to press them in the right order. Now, I forget the exact way you're supposed to figure out which is which. Like, I think maybe the pelican's white wings indicate there's 2 white keys next to it that do actively work, or something like that. I just know that the order is to press this one, the black key next to it, the white key next to the previous white key, and then the black key on the far left. And that makes the silver medallion fall from there, and we can now take that back downstairs in order to move the clock forward and access the next part of the school. Now I'd say it's time we pull our usual and take a look at the game's manual, because there is a little more explanation to the prologue of the game that was the intro FMV before the title screen. The resort town of Silent Hill slips into quiet desolation now that the peak of development and growth has passed by. The memories of a tragic fire 7 years ago still haunt the townsfolk. With the tourist season long past, there's hardly a shadow stirring. Harry Mason prefers to take late vacations with his daughter Cheryl. This year, they made plans to visit Silent Hill. Due to car trouble, they reach the outskirts of the town late at night. Cheryl's sleeping in the back seat as a motorcycle cop roars past his truck. Moments later, Harry spots the motorcycle dumped on the shoulder. There's no one to be seen. It paints an ominous picture. Suddenly, a shadow appears in front of that car. Harry turns the wheel in panic. The car slides off the edge of the road into a gully. Harry eventually regains consciousness. Cheryl's nowhere to be seen. It's unusually cold. Snow is falling, out of season. Where's Cheryl disappeared to? Harry walks towards the town he sees in the distance. I should also note, Silent Hill is meant to be placed in Maine. A lot of this game's character designs and names are either references to musicians or horror movie characters in some regard. Or even, more obviously, because it's Maine, Stephen King. Like, I believe the character we saw at the very start of the intro FMV is a reference to The Haunting of Hell House, if memory serves. Also, the theme out here in the courtyard makes me super uneasy. Oddly loud, and for some reason I think that's the point. So, the final thing we need to do in the school for now We've moved the clock forward once again by placing this the medallion over to 5 o'clock, so now we need to light a fire of sorts, and to do that we need to get to the basement. The thing is, again, finding your way around in the school on a first playthrough is very mazy, because there's a lot of one-way doors that you can only unlock by getting to the sides, and there's a lot of doors you just can't enter, period. Silent Hill, I'd argue, is a... Like, I brought this up a little bit prior. Silent Hill's quote-unquote dungeon design is very different from Resident Evil in that there's really only one way through most areas. Like, the doors can only be unlocked in a certain order. Compare that to Resident Evil, where there's maybe like 2 or 3 ways you can progress through certain areas or to get to one particular area. There's a couple different angles you can take. I'm immediately thinking of Resident Evil 2 Remake, for instance. You can go 2 or 3 different ways around the police station when you're particularly trying to get into the library with the tool to move the bookshelf to avoid Mr. X. You can either go through the library's side door on the main hall, you can go around up to the STARS office because that has a safe room that you can escape Mr. X in. Resident Evil's a lot more, not open-ended, but you can approach it in more ways than you can Silent Hill's level design. In some ways, I prefer what Silent Hill does, but in a lot of other ways, I do prefer what Resident Evil does. I think for making a ambient horror experience, though, it's a lot easier to make that work with what Silent Hill does. Because if you had more open-ended ways, you're in more control of the situation. And even though I don't like how some games handle it, the less in control of a situation you are in a horror game, the scarier it is. Like, that's why so many games do the whole chaser enemy thing, like Mr. X or Nemesis or the alien from Alien Isolation. And why so many, like Amnesia the Dark Descent, don't give you ways to really fight back outside of distracting enemies by throwing something. Now, to completely suck the seriousness out of the situation, this school is funny. For one particular reason. Also, here's a boiler. We need to turn it on. Well, that's not very monstrous. The school is funny to me, because they deliberately modeled it off the one from the Arnold Schwarzenegger hit Kindergarten Cop? There's a lot of comparison images around on the internet. It's uncanny. Like, they use a lot of the same school room layouts. They use a lot of the same posters. It's just funny to me. I'm just forever sad that I somehow saw Kindergarten Cop 2 before the first one. God, that movie was uninteresting. Now, the manual for the game... Since we turned on that boiler, though, we can now head back to the courtyard and progress on. Also, something I should note. The camera in this game is a little uncooperative in some ways. Like you'll see right here, it's a little really weird, but then it just shifts like that. What that shift is me pressing the L2 button, which puts the camera into what's quote-unquote known as search mode. I just find that holding the L2 button in general makes the game a lot more easy to navigate, because the camera's just a lot more cooperative that way. Since we turned on the boiler, though, that door is now open, so we can come down here to this weird room, and there's that siren again in the distance. So, we're only about halfway through the school. And I think this cutscene will exemplify what exactly was coming up ahead.
Where am I? Have I been here before? I don't remember this being here before.
So how'd we go from one room to that exact same room by climbing down a ladder, going straight forward and climbing up a different ladder? Well, let's just say things aren't exactly the same anymore in the school, and you can even tell that a little bit just by looking at the doors design a little bit. And the fact that music is a lot more wild sounding. Now I'm looking around here because I always remember reading at some point that there's ammo and a health drink hidden here, but I don't think there actively is unless that's a difficulty change thing. Because playing the game on hard and easy mode does add and take away a couple of items in some cases. I know they add a lot of enemies in some cases. Like hard mode adds groaners in the alleyway when you're running back there for the iron pipe and stuff. So the school's looking a little different. It's now very ruined looking, iron fences all over the place. This is what's known as the Otherworld, and they don't really explain a lot about it in the game, partially intentionally because a lot of Silent Hill is a bunch of symbolism and reading into certain characters' lives. Just know that the layout's the same, but it's not going to work the exact same. For instance, in this room, we'll now find a rubber ball. Doors you couldn't open before, you might now be able to open. Doors that were unlocked before might now be relocked and can only be opened from a different angle. It's essentially, in a way, kind of a second quest of the school, but we have to deal with a lot more of the gray children in that. We do get a new enemy, I believe, in this next room, though. I forget the name of them. They're bugs. You can just run past them, but they try to group up on you a lot, and they can stun lock you pretty easily if there's another enemy type nearby. Watch out for them. They can be surprising. Going back to the manual, though, there is some very minor character bios, but it's only for 3, technically 4 characters, so we might as well go over what we got. Harry Mason, age 32. He's a writer and our protagonist. Losing his wife to disease has left a shadow over his soul. His daughter's the only bright spot left in his life. He goes to Silent Hill to go on vacation with his daughter, to be mired in bizarre events. That was the beginning of this tale. Or was it predetermined somehow? That's a truth that Harry has yet to discover. Cheryl Mason, age 7, Harry's daughter. She has lost her mother at a young age and lives with her father, a gentle, normal child. She goes on vacation with her father to Silent Hill. However, an unimaginable event is waiting to unfold. Man, they really didn't give her any personality. And then there's another bio for, I believe, Sybil somewhere in here. Where is? There it is. Sybil Bennett, age 22, police officer. She's an officer that patrols near Silent Hill. A sudden call has caused her to investigate Silent Hill. She's faithful to her duties and investigate Silent Hill on her own. And there's a 4th character, but we haven't quite met them yet, so let's not talk about them. The infirmary is notably a safe room in the Otherworld School as well, so you can use this as a really good landmark to explore the school from. Although, to compare, again, to Resident Evil, I find you don't actively need to return to save points as often here, if only because there's no inventory limits. Whereas Resident Evil, you can only carry upwards of like 6 to 10 items at a time, depending on the game or character. Harry can hold in basically an infinite amount of everything. I believe the ammo does eventually have a cap, and you'll just pick up the extraneous items and not have the total be added, unless it overflows. But he can carry anything, and future Silent Hill games more or less keep this in as well. At least until, I don't think Homecoming does it. 4 definitely doesn't, because 4 does a lot of weird things. And I forget what Downpour does. And here's important things. We have an ampule. The ampule is the best healing item in the game. Guarantees a max health restore. And for a brief period after using it, it either regenerates your health slightly or it increases your defense. I forget the exact way it works on the game's angle. Just save it for boss fights. In fact, I'd recommend saving it particularly for the final boss, because there's only like 3 or 4 of those in the game, period. But they're absurd when you can find them. So a few moments ago, while I was talking about other things, we picked up a picture card, and right here where the painting was in the teacher's lounge, there's now a door. What, is this a door? Even if it is, there's no keyhole or even a knob. If I push it, it moves a bit, but it certainly won't open. What's this? The center of the door is a horizontal slot. What's it for? Well, the picture card we found looks exactly like the door, and it has a key on the back, so let's give it a shot. Slid the picture card into the slot. Well, that certainly opened it up. That's what I mean when it comes to Silent Hill's puzzles as well. Unless there's an outright puzzle. Key hunts in Silent Hill are a lot more straightforward than Resident Evil, whereas a Resident Evil key would be in 3 different places, split into 2 different parts each, and used in one doorway. Usually the key for any door in Silent Hill is found along the way. Now, I entered the bathroom there. And I left the bathroom, and you might notice there was a fence there that wasn't there before. This is something the first game only does a couple times. Silent Hill 2 and 3 do a little more with this. Sometimes doors aren't what they seem. I think this is the women's room. Teleports you up to the second floor. And then you can go into the second floor bathrooms. And then when you enter the room again, you're just teleported back down to the first floor for some reason. Oh, right. Harry has a backward jump. I forget about that. That can be used to avoid enemies. But it's really... Cause you have to, like, tap the jump button... not the jump button. The backwards button twice. So it's really awkward to input when you're being attacked. It's not very useful. Also, this body is intense looking, but not very scary. But notably here, we have the shotgun, the second ranged weapon in the game. With that said, it's more of a boss killer than anything. Leonard Rhyme, the monster lurks. The monster lurks? What's that supposed to mean? The shotgun does come with some caveats, though. Not only is there less ammo for it in the game, but like you'd think, it's most effective at close range. Because the further an enemy is away from you, Harry does tend to get a little more inaccurate. It's only really the final gun in the game that you get during the main campaign that can do any kind of real long range. The shotgun's meant for close range gunfighting, whereas the handgun's meant for close to mid range. But it can work somewhat at long range, it's just less effective. And again, if you put that bullet adjust option further and further up, you can more or less fight every enemy in the game with at least the handgun, because you'll find more than enough ammo. The shotgun even to an extent, just less so because there's less ammo.
Cheryl!
That was Cheryl's voice. I know it. Where is she? Cheryl. I distinctly remember when I first played this game through, I got to this point in the game, about midnight-ish, if memory serves, maybe 11 p.m. It was dark in my room because I was trying to enhance the atmosphere and all that. That phone rang, I nearly jumped out of my chair. And that was a hard chair to jump out of, too, because it was tall. And I wasn't as tall at the time. So it's weird thinking back to when you first played certain games you know you love, but you like more now or dislike more now than you used to. Because there's that wistfulness, that wistful feeling that comes from it, but it's also like, man, things have changed. And welcome to the roof of the school. We got a hole right here. There's a hanging key. It's just out of reach. We're gonna need that to open a door, of course. And here at the corner, there's another hole. Nothing special. But there is something special to it. We found a rubber ball earlier here in the Otherworld School. We can use it to plug this hole. You might wonder why we did that. Well, over here, there's a drainage valve. Do you want to open it? Absolutely. Putting the rubber ball there makes the water go over that hole and instead go where the key is. And if we check this hole again, the key went down the drain. I then got lost for an hour in my first playthrough trying to figure out where the hell the key went. I'm just going to tell you, it went to the courtyard. We need to look around there for the key now. And I honestly forget if there's gray children in the courtyard at this point. I don't think there are in the other world. But it's... I won't say it's been a hot minute because I recorded this like not even a month ago. But I am having trouble remembering because when I edit, I look for the points I leave for myself when I like look at my notes where I just stand still for a few minutes looking at that, maybe DMing someone. I don't take a look at what's going on in every room unless I'm looking for, like, an outright recording error, like a bunch of frames dropped or something. So I don't quite remember what's going on at this point. Alright, no enemies here, so this place is also safe from harm. We just gotta deal with this creepy-ass music. But over here we got the key that fell down, a classroom key. So we can now enter a different door that leads to, I believe, the east side of the school on the second floor? From memory? Maybe the first floor? Oh yeah, no, it's the second floor based off this. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we're going to, I believe, finally go finish off the school. See you guys then.